Tomb Raiders, what a week. I want to talk a little bit about where things are up to with the Tomb Raider 10th Anniversary Edition, or TRAE, or TRAE. I've always called it TRAE, so I'm just going to carry on calling it TRAE. And I'd love to give some happy little thoughts about the entire thing. At the start of the year we had the files, and then within 24 hours fans had managed to make that build playable. And since then, fans have managed to add sound effects, they've made Melissa Croft playable, they've made Indiana Jones playable. They've discovered the T-Rex, they've discovered some in-game triggers that make things like pieces of the environment collapse or doors open. They made multiplayer co-op partially work. Some fans have fixed the texture issue that was stopping some people with certain graphics cards from being able to play the game. They've even developed a workaround for people whose games controllers wouldn't work, and now it lets them use their keyboard to play the game. Tomb of Ash did a live stream that featured Shelley Blond, Lara's original voice actress, reading out some of the new lines from this game. Peter Connolly has shared some of the sound effects that he originally created for the project back in 2006. Musician Dean Copry has created an absolutely breathtaking piece of theme music for this game, and also some ambient sound effects and music that goes in the background as well. Some fans have even started to build up pieces of the missing environment from this game using textures from the build and concept art. Even a Natla model was made. And yesterday, if you searched for Tomb Raider on Google, TRAE absolutely dominated the newsfeed. It's not even 10 days into 2021. It's become such a passion project for fans already, and it's just more than I could have dreamed of at this point. So I would love to go through some of the things that I particularly love about the game, and some of the really cool, intriguing little bits and pieces that have been found since the start of the year. Deciphering ancient glyphs on walls is something that we have seen recently in Rise of the Tomb Raider and in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I don't think we saw it in the reboot itself. Seeing how they were trying to implement that sort of thing way back then is just fantastic, and it's something that should have been in the series for a damn long time anyway. It's just a really cool way of adding some more lore and information to Tomb Raider 1's story, and I can only imagine where they wanted to go with this throughout the story, and the hints, I'm sure they would have alluded to other parts of the series. It's rife with it, especially Egypt. Imagine the sort of foreshadowing throwaway lines they could have included in the obelisk level. One of the statues on the obelisk itself is set. And the new lines as well, they give a sort of extra dimension and extra bit of life to the environments. For example, in the docks area, Lara says, oh, this must have been where they would have docked their ships, or whatever she says, I can't remember at this point. But it connects it to the outside world. It implies that people were coming there, trading, exploring in the past. This city of Vilcabamba, it wasn't just a series of small square buildings. It was lived in, it was used, there were people there in the past. The Lost Valley has just, I still can't even talk about it. It's transcended what I expected of this game. I didn't think it would be so complete, but I really didn't think it would be this beautiful. And yeah, you can say, oh, but it's such low textures and everything's so jagged and outdated. I don't care. I really don't care. Look at it. Look at the colours. Look how vibrant and alive and beautiful. And those waterfalls. Holy crap, those waterfalls. I mentioned a little bit about it in one of my previous videos, I can't remember, but one of the things that I love about how this game feels is that it feels like I'm revisiting those same locations from the first game, but as they naturally grew through time. So it's like I've gone back to them 25 years later, and all of these stony grey areas have now grown over with all this moss and plants and trees, and the ceilings have fallen in and there's water pouring in now and all this erosion, and it's aged, but it still feels familiar and it still feels like it's the same place. Also really cool little thing, what we would have seen if this had been turned into an Indiana Jones game, I think, flying dinosaurs or pterodons or pterodactyls. I know one of those isn't actually a dinosaur, but look at it, it's so cool. Also, using debug, we can see that this level potentially would have had 2 T-Rexes? I mean, what's better than 1 T-Rex? 2. Simple. The fact that there are skeletons now everywhere, particularly love this in Tomb of Qualopec. There are just people who've just wandered around and given up, and just sat in a corner and died. Who were they? I love the fact that I doubt Lara would have even acknowledged these skeletons. Like, she never has acknowledged skeletons, even though she's surrounded by them at all times. But it's ripe for storytelling and for fans to delve into and to theorize about and work up bizarre conspiracies, and it's just, I just love stuff like that. I think it's great, and the fact that this game seems to be full of them. Interestingly enough, one of the places where combat kind of works is at the start of the cistern level. There's a little rat on the floor, and if you take the guns out, or the flaming torch, Lara aims at this rat and you can make her shoot. Unfortunately, this game looked like it was going for the then in thing with Tomb Raider and having these spinning circular targets around the enemies, because people are apparently stupid and can't tell what they're shooting at. That always bugged me in any Tomb Raider game where that featured. I think it was in just Legend and Annivesary. I think it was optional in Underworld. I always turned it off, and I always modded it out of the other games because it was garish and arcadey and completely unnecessary. I absolutely adore the look of the Tomb of Tehokan level, and I always found it such a shame that that was not treated as well as it should have been in the past. But look at what they've done with this place now, and the idea that this one place would have been this entire spider nest. I don't like spiders. This is terrifying, and I'm sure this is probably where that giant spider animation thing would have come into play. Yikes. Like the skeletons wrapped up in webs and just, ugh. Again, who were they? Were they adventurers? Now, one of the other places that core seemed to have diverged from their original source material was inside the Tomb of Tehokan itself. Whereas in the original, you just fought Pierre and then there was a cutscene. Now it looked as though this giant Medusa statue was actually a puzzle in itself. Lara can climb on it, and then using the debug mode, we can also see that this bit is a keyhole. Kind of implies that at some point in the level we would have had to have Lara find a gemstone that would have been used as a key in its eye, probably then opening the actual little tomb sarcophagus area where Tehokan was buried. Also, speaking about how this isn't just a sort of direct, complete 1-1 remake, there are other new little areas as well I've stumbled across. Notably at the moment, the one I can think about is this one in the Lost Valley, which isn't there in the original, and I guess this is just where one of the secrets would have been. The colours in Egypt, the lighting, I really like in the city of Khartoum these new statues and stuff that they've added. Take a look at this piece of concept art, which was where the apparently terrifying cat statue was. It looked in the concept like it was going to be a much sort of taller, more chasm-like room. And maybe they went for it, some part of the development for TRAE, but they changed their mind. You can see this big statue here is actually still there, but only its legs are left and the rest of it have crumbled down into the sand next to it. It's just a really cool thing to see how they've taken the concept art and they've been like, okay, yeah, we can work with this, but they've sort of kept elements and changed the idea, but in such a fitting way. Also, hands up, I really don't mind that they switched out the Geir Anderson cat for this unbelievably adorable statue of Sekhmet. Just look at her little face. Ah, so cute. Don't tell her I said that, she'll rip me apart. The obelisk itself is phenomenal. Like, this entire level is quite built up as it is, but the colours and the textures and the lighting and just the environment and vibe of this place is so beautiful and inviting and warm and just intriguing. God, I miss this style. Really miss this style. A cool thing in the Sanctuary of the Skion, this completely plain bridge that was in the original, they've turned it into this Horus bridge in TRAE. And again, the lighting, the visuals, the atmosphere. But also, if you use the debug, you can see that this was going to be a keyhole, and there was a keyhole there in the original, and I'd like to think that this isn't just something they left over, that somehow that Horus beak was going to open, and we would have got to use the key to open the door to the room behind. Finally, another little piece that I really like is just the details of the lava in Natla's mines, or whoever's mines it was going to be in the Indiana Jones game. I just love how gruesomely stickily. It sort of moves down and acts kind of appropriately. And this whole thing just really reminds me of the vibe of that fire room in Angel of Darkness, and it's got that same sort of vibe, and the colours. It just looks dangerous, but also oddly inviting. So one thing that really gets talked about a lot that I've noticed in terms of TRAE is the lighting, the colours that this game presented, and just how visually striking it is compared to both Tomb Raider 1 and to Tomb Raider Annivesary. You have the greys mixed in with the blues and the purples, the greens start coming through in places as well, but then that's all mixed together with the reds and the oranges, and these are such vibrant, bright, inviting colours. I've said it a few times that this game feels inviting, and I've often said that while I've been talking about the lighting. And I think colour psychology plays a big, important role in this, and I don't think it should be ignored. Throughout history, throughout design, media, gaming development, colours have been used to convey certain emotions and to make people feel certain ways. Things like the blues and greens are very peaceful, calming colours. And then you have the purple, which has always been a very sort of grand, if not mysterious and magical colour. You have the oranges and the yellows and how sort of warm and comforting those feelings are. And then eventually it comes along to the reds and everything that sort of red denotes to people. And that sort of vibrant, alive, it connects to life, it's about blood, but it's also danger and warning. It has so many different meanings. And all of this, when it's used in lighting and textures, everything is used to give the player a certain feeling for a certain purpose. And even the Crystal Annivesary game uses colour psychology, although you will come across comments from people saying how bland Annivesary looks compared to Core's Annivesary game. And while I feel that is true to a certain degree, you just have to look at that comparison video, and a lot of the environments are much darker and greyer and browner compared to the original and compared to Annivesary Edition. It's absolutely not fair just to say that it's bland and boring looking. In itself, that game was really beautifully stylized and based on realism. Everything is hyper-realistic and really sharp and crisp, and you have these bright white lights everywhere that basically is what you would expect in places like that. And it's not a bad thing, it's just a creative decision that they made and that's what they went with, and that's fine. The colour psychology there as well is definitely used, but it is used to, I feel, a much less degree than the more obvious way in which it was used in this cancelled game. I mean, the game has its reds and its greens, although they do seem quite muted. It just seems to be that the darker, earthier tones, the greys, the browns, are what seem to have stuck in people's memory. And what's unfortunate about that is just look around anywhere on the internet, search for the world's favourite colours. Time and time again you will see websites coming up with these charts and graphs and surveys that they've asked thousands of people around the world what their favourite colours are, and you will see things like the blues and the greens and the reds and the orange and yellows and purples, and almost always the greys and the browns will be the least favourite end of the spectrum. And I really do think that that's why a lot of comparisons from people tend to focus on the colours and the lighting, because it's so prominent, and it's pretty much the first thing you see is the colour. It's what you take in, and is effectively it's the gaming version of judging a book by its cover. We probably shouldn't do it, but unfortunately I think it's in our nature, and it's something that we should fight against and give things a proper chance to show their true colours. Another thing that I'm seeing a lot is people saying, I'm really glad that I got Crystal Dynamics' Annivesary game over this, because this is just a 1-1 remake and Crystal tried to change things and that's better for reasons X, Y, Z. And that's fine. If you prefer Annivesary to this or to Tomb Raider 1, to any other Tomb Raider game, wonderful. I'm sure the developers of this game are very, very pleased you feel that way, and that is magnificent. And for the sake of being open-minded, I will have a look at certain things that I feel like I preferred compared to the other games. Personally, I think that there's a lot of things that Tomb Raider 1 did better than Annivesary Edition and Annivesary. I think there are things that TRAE have done better than Annivesary or Tomb Raider 1, and I think there are things that Annivesary has done better than TRAE and Tomb Raider 1. Every single one of these games has real good positives about them. There are parts in Crystal's Annivesary game that I do think are better than their versions in Tomb Raider 1 and Annivesary Edition. For example, the water room in St. Francis Folly. I think Tomb Raider Annivesary did that so much better than Tomb Raider 1, which was just you jump into a hole and you swim to the bottom and then you escape, versus even what we got in TRAE, which they haven't kept it 1-1, they've added things in the water to make hazards, to make it trickier for Lara to get to the bottom and get out again in time. But in Annivesary they turned it into a massive puzzle, and I really like that about that. But also when we're talking about gameplay things, I think there are things from TRAE and from Tomb Raider 1 that did things much better than Crystal's Annivesary game. One of the main things, and this is something that I always had an issue with, is how the platforming games from the past, they focused all of their action in the middle of the room. Occasionally you would be on the outside wall, but it does seem like a lot in this Annivesary era of Tomb Raider, a lot of the action was limited to the outsides of the room. There was so much gameplay in Tomb Raider Annivesary where Lara was just clinging to ledges on the wall and you were limited to going left or right, or wall running, or jumping up or falling down and moving along side by side. But the fact is you were always facing a wall. The action part, the platforming part seemed to be lost due to that, and TRAE seemed to be much more like the original in that respect. Action was more platformy in that way and less clingy to the walls, and to me that's just something that really appeals. I just like having the action more platformy, though I feel like that definitely improved as the series went along. I think Underworld brought that back quite a lot, and then obviously there was a lot more running around, jumping action throughout the reboot series as well. In terms of TRAE, I've seen some people saying how the controls are really dodgy or they feel like clunky. I've seen mainstream video game review websites say how old and out of date the controls are. Quite honestly, I think that's bullshit. Yes, the controls are not as loose and fast, and Lara doesn't zip around quite as quickly as she does in the reboot series, but these controls are intuitive, they're much smoother than Angel of Darkness. But I also loved the moveset that came from some of the earlier Tomb Raider games. Like, it wasn't limited to Lara always jumping forwards. Like in modern Tomb Raider games, if you jump and then hit a direction, Lara will always be facing the way that you press, so she will always be jumping forwards. Whereas in this game, it kind of knows if you press backwards and jump, she will backflip. If you jump to the side, she will side flip. And there's a lot of environment that sort of caters for that moveset, and it works. And then if we're going after animations, there are some parts in which the animations are not quite finished, like that little stop she does after she lands from a jump, whereas in all previous Tomb Raider games she would always run, she would land, she would hit the ground running as it was. So I don't think that all of these animations were completely finished, but what's there is really nice. I absolutely love her climbing animations. Like in my video even just a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about my wish list of I want Lara to slow down and look like she has to put more effort into climbing around these environments, something of this speed where she actually looks like she's interacting properly with the environment. It's, yes, this is the sort of thing that I love. But overall I can't believe we finally have this game. I can't believe how lucky we are that we have 3 versions of Tomb Raider 1. How many other fandoms can say that about their favourite game? That they have 3 different versions of it. And each one is different in its own right. Each one brings something new and fresh and exciting to it. What I would like is that people see this as it making everyone happy. Everyone has something to love. And that's really important. It shouldn't be cause for more fighting. It should be a cause for celebration. So where's it going from here? What sort of things are in the works for this? As I was saying earlier, people are already building more environments that were already missing in this version of the game. I'd say there's probably people trying to work on the combat and make the combat functional, and how people are already able to make certain sound effects and things work. I don't think it'll be too long before people work out how we can input things like sound effects and music that's original. Something else I'm really excited for is custom cutscenes. I don't think any of the cutscenes were made for this game. I mean, we've seen the one with the T-Rex, obviously, but I don't know later in the game how many more were made. And that's great, because it means that fans are going to get the chance to actually work on making their own cutscenes for this game. You're going to have people who use 3D software, rigged models that were in this game, bring them to life. It's just super, super exciting. As someone who loves making videos, that sort of thing is just immensely exciting to me. Ultimately, I'm just absolutely blown away and so happy that now, after all of these years, we finally get to play TRAE. I think seeing people fighting over it it's unfortunate, but it's not unexpected, sadly, because I think people associate with the game so much, whether Tomb Raider 1 was your favourite, whether Tomb Raider Annivesary was your favourite. Some people take that preference to heart so much that it becomes a part of them, and they see different views as an attack on that, as an attack on them, as an attack on their favourites. And that's just not healthy. Tomb Raider 10th Anniversary Edition is not taking anything away from people who love Tomb Raider 1 or who love Tomb Raider Anniversary. It's adding to the wealth of gaming potential and excitement for the fandom. It might not be your cup of tea, it might be your new least favourite Tomb Raider game, but the point is, it's now a very real and tangible part of Tomb Raider's history, and it should be treated with that kind of respect. I think whenever from now on I talk about the Tomb Raider series, TRAE will now be included. When I talk about Tomb Raider 1 and Tomb Raider Anniversary, TRAE will also be talked about. When people talk about their favourite in-game Lara model, TRAE should be considered. Unearthing missing history and hunting for ancient artifacts is like the main theme of Tomb Raider. Personally, I think we would be doing the series and Lara an injustice to ignore TRAE and continue as though nothing has happened and there's no new Tomb Raider news when this unpolished gem has been dropped in our laps. Do you think Lara would ignore it? There's no way she'd ignore it. So get involved. You like Tomb Raider? Act like one. So dig into it, experience it. It's important to talk about it, explore it, play it, and recognise it for its place in Lara's world and for the lost artifact that it really is.